This is a filament allowing me access to Abyssal Dead Space in EVE Online. This one is calm, so tier 1. Nothing too dangerous, but certainly far more dangerous than I tried the last time. So with that in mind, I've got my Navy cruiser here, and yes, you may have noticed I'm now playing on my older character. This is Helena from 2003, my first ever character I created. So in this sponsored video, I'm going to take a look at a few different areas of the game with this character and see how we get on. Also, to check out the links in the video description where you can find a link to EVE Online itself, as well as EVE Academy, which is a rather great resource for starting out. Now, I've got to admit, I'm a little bit rusty here. Drones are definitely the focus of this character. I've got quite a lot of skills and time pumped into them. However, one tip here, make sure your ship is set up to tank the damage. Here, the NPC target is targeting my drones rather than me, and, well, potentially makes rather short work of them. Lesson learned. Fortunately, it ended just fine for the drones here. I did recall them in time, noticing my mistake. Not a mistake I would usually make, but, you know, there we go. So, Tier 1 Abyssal Dead Space is a relatively good way to make money. As long as you're careful here, as long as you've got the right equipment, then you shouldn't really have too much trouble at all. I walked away with quite a few million credits here. Not too bad all in all. Now, as much as I like those types of encounters, I really wanted to go out and check the rest of the galaxy. The galaxy in EVE Online is pretty big. You can see here I'm located in this particular system. The little number there, 0.4, is the security rating of that system. Anything between 0.1 and 0.4 is considered low security, or low sec as it's known in the game. Now, this cluster of stars represents every star you can visit, every star system you can visit in the game. The central clusters are high sec, but first let's start right out here on the edges. So these are some pretty interesting locations, to say the least. Once you start getting to 0.0 and below, it's considered null sec. There's no security here at all. These then are the systems that can be claimed by player corporations and player alliances. They're the regions of space that you hear all the epic stories about when it comes to EVE. The massive conflicts, the areas of intrigue, and all of the rest of the politics that go into the game. Nullsec then is a fantastic place to be if you've joined up with a corporation. I have done that in the past. Right now I'm not in an active corporation, so I'm not out that way. Another area of space is high sec, or high security. This is a security level 0.5 all the way up to 1.0. These are considered empire space, and they are owned and controlled by one of the 4 empires. These areas are pretty safe, or as safe as it can actually get in EVE Online. You can still die here, of course, even to players, but generally speaking, you're going to be pretty safe. Now, those of you who have been watching my videos for long enough will know that I'm a very keen and very avid explorer. I absolutely love exploring every corner of an open world game. So, with that in mind, I wanted to check out something very specific: the infamous wormholes. Equipped with my trusty exploration ship then, it was time to deploy the scanning probes and track down one of those wormholes. So we touched very briefly on scanning in the previous video, and with a good set of skills, it's actually very, very effective. So I'm here in low sec space, tracking down the wormhole, and there we go, there's one straight away. Now, wormholes come in different classes. It took me a little while to actually remember that and realise it. So until that moment, I was just pretty much entering random wormholes just to see what I could find. And here we go, here's one wormhole. Pretty interesting looking, aren't they? So wormholes can lead to 2 main different types of locations. You've got wormholes that jump you through space to a different point in known space. This one, for example, took me to a very different side of the known galaxy. And let's just bring up the star map. You can see how far away I am. Quite a few jumps, so effectively wormholes are shortcuts to a different point. This one effectively took me 41 jumps away from my home system at the moment. Let's just bring that up and have a little look there. So, quite a jump. Now, I didn't want to be here, so time to head back through the wormhole. Look how quickly all those jump routes actually decrease there. We'll be back to home in no time at all. That was precisely the wrong type of wormhole for what I was after. So what was I looking for? Well, I wanted a wormhole to unknown space. These wormholes come in, I believe, 6 different classes. Classes 1 to 3 are the areas that I actually wanted. And you can tell this if you right click on the wormhole and choose show info, it will simply say unknown space. If it says dangerous unknown space or deadly unknown space, they will be of a higher class. So here we are then. Eventually I made it to the destination that I wanted, right there in the middle. Unknown space, the point of no return. So what was my goal here? What was I looking for? Well, for starters, there are gas clouds here. If you want to go track those down, you can mine gas clouds and take back the valuables and the resources. But I was after data science. And this then is where I began the process of what led to a fairly expensive mistake. Fortunately, I was here in a comparatively cheap ship, around about 20 million here or so, ISK, so something I can afford, not too much of a problem, but I certainly lost quite a few of them. Now you may be wondering, was it players that caused the problem for me? Was I attacked by a PvPer? Well, no. I certainly know enough about EVE Online to keep my wits about me and how, for the most part, to avoid that. Although that said, right at the very end of this entire process, I did leave my ship unattended in Lowsec and ended up dead by a player, so yeah, don't do the obvious mistakes. This is the objective that I was talking about. This is a data site, and this is where I made the mistake I was discussing. Over in the distance then, you can see the containers. These usually contain some pretty valuable resources. However, you've got to get over to them to take them. But what I should have remembered, what I should have realised, is don't do this in sleeper size. The enemies here are far, far too aggressive, far too powerful for me in a ship of this size. Just look how long I last. So I did have a cloak enabled there, trying to sneak up, not realising 2 things. First, when you're within proximity of a data cache like this, it will disable your cloak. Secondly, I couldn't have scanned it with my cloak enabled anyway. Lesson 2 learned. So if I can't go to sleeper sites, sleeper data sites, what do I want? Well, there's a different class of data site and a different class of relic site out there. These ones are labelled as pirate sites. Now there's 4 major types of factions, pirate factions in EVE Online. Well, technically 5 actually. There's Sanctions Nation, if you want to include them. Then there's Serpentis, Blood Raiders, the Angel Cartel, and Guristas. So if you're in wormhole space and you track down any of the data sites with those particular keywords, those pirate factions in the name, then you're golden, because there's not going to be any NPCs here. You still have to watch out for players, of course, because you never know. You may find one turn up and they may want what you've got. As long as you're quick, as long as you're careful, you shouldn't really have too much of an issue. Now, data sites are pretty good. Relic sites are generally even better, but this one is a data site. And you fly over to these big data mainframes here and you hack into them. They'll then allow you access to a secure container where you can steal the various bits of goodies from them. So, hack in. This is a mini game. It's a pretty neat one actually, to be honest, although it did take me a bit of time to actually get used to. Essentially, you start off on a grid here. You need to move your way across the grid and locate the core. We'll go into more detail on that in just a moment. And yes, I did notice on the directional scanner here that there was another player in the system doing a bit of scanning, but as these weren't combat probes, I wasn't really too worried and I was willing to take the chance to just unlock all the containers here. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And now back to the hacking. You can see I began the process in the top left hand corner of the grid. I need to find the core. Now the core will always be at least 9 nodes away from me, so no point exploring the nodes that are right next door. The only exception to this is if you start out right in the middle of the grid. So if we count the nodes here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and no point going in that direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so it could be right over there, kind of worth going to, or potentially right down the bottom there. Anywhere located closer than that, no point uncovering the node, because it's just not going to be there. When you uncover a white node like that one, it has a chance of being either a virus, firewall, which both those are hostile, or a resource like that one. Now at this point I've kind of got locked out due to the various viruses and firewalls there. Actually attacked them and then found the core. Attacked the core and we've got into the container. And look at that. Fairly reasonable amount of money there, not too bad all in all. So when you track down a data site and relic sites that have loads of these type of containers, you can walk away with a pretty decent amount of money. So exploration, particularly scanning down in wormholes or indeed low-sec space or even null-sec space, can provide a pretty significant part of EVE Online. I spent around 10 to 15 hours doing all of this, getting to grips with it and trying out different things, different activities and different ships, until eventually I settled on just scanning down data sites and relic sites in a wormhole space. So there's certainly a lot of time that you can put into this if you want to commit to that, and overall it's certainly a very rewarding experience. If you want to learn more about exploration, then do check out the links in the video description where you can find a link to EVE Academy. That then brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys and girls next time.